In Focus continues for you on Newsroom Africa Channel 405. There are calls for the winter initiation season to be postponed as COVID-19 cases continue to soar and the country battles a third wave. Joining me now to talk about this is Congress of the Traditional Leaders of South Africa, General Secretary Zolani Mkiva. Royal Highness, good evening and thank you very much for joining us on In Focus today. There is an announcement, of course, coming from the Western Cape province of a possible delay in reopening initiation schools. Firstly, were you consulted on this decision? What is your position?
Well, thank you very much, Thabo, and good evening to you, my brother, as well as the viewers of Newsroom Africa. With regards to the Western Cape province, insofar as the opening of the season, as they had announced that initiation schools will be allowed to open from the 1st of June. There was a broad consultation prior to that announcement being made. Then subsequent to that, they then say that they have received an advisory from their Department of Health in the province, which was giving them a signal that they may have to review that decision. And unfortunately, that decision came just on the eve of the 1st of June. That was the 31st of May. By that time, we have already had a number of boys that had gone through the rites of passage to manhood as from the 1st, which is yesterday. So we already had quite a number of boys which have already exceeded 100 in the Western Cape alone. But the advisory does not necessarily mean that a decision has already been taken. I think that advisory is informing the MEC responsible for cultural affairs in that province to begin consulting with the national ministry, particularly COCTA, to say that they need to get a hint as to what they should do in this respect. So that's where it stands. And as for now, their earlier decision to allow initiation to occur is being carried, and as such, many families are taking their young boys in.
This, of course, was a decision reached earlier in March when suspensions were lifted. How does the announcement by the president to move the country now to lockdown level 2 impact then on the viability of continuing with this season?
No, certainly it does impact in a negative light. And you will appreciate, Thabo, that with the wholesale cancellation of 2020 winter season in particular, we have a huge backlog. And we are talking now about thousands and thousands of boys who had been waiting in suspense for the season to be open. So it would mean that that number will accumulate, given the fact that we have been moved to level 2. And of course, we have to act in a very responsible way and put the protection of lives before anything, because the ritual itself is not intended to do any fatalities. So therefore, we'll have to prioritize. We have to live with that reality that this backlog may be reach a maximal point. All we need to do is to try our level best to give leadership to all the communities, the families that were expecting to check in their children, that they have to understand that this silent enemy is actually vicious and it could be detrimental to the lives of their own children.
Are you exploring the idea of other opportunities to regain lost time and deal with the backlogs?
What we are doing, because as you know, that this coronavirus thrives during winter season, during cold weather. So we are looking at a possibility of engaging government that we must look at the December holidays and allow a period which is longer in that holiday, so that we have a month to a month and a half, so that we could allow as many children during that period to be absorbed in the initiation schools. So that is what we are looking at. But also to those that have just reached the age of 18, we will also say that not all is lost. They can wait those ones, because even if you are 19, you are still young enough to wait for 2022. So as I'm saying that, it would also not be advisable that we deal with numbers that we will not be in a position to manage in December. So we'll encourage families, to those who had planned for 2021, if they can reschedule for 2022, I think we need to take all necessary precautions and exercise extra care in the best interest of the children.
Right. Talk to me then about the training so far that has been undertaken for the traditional surgeons.
Yes, there are workshops, there are training workshops that are being conducted, particularly in this season, because it is the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape that was in a state of readiness to actually check in the children in the initiation schools. So we have asked the relevant departments to cooperate with the custodian, which is the institutional traditional leadership in this respect, so that they can give much needed support, so that they can be training on how we do the tests, on how we do the checks for the levels of the temperature, and also the issue of sanitization, social distance, all of those ABCs and XYZ that needs to be done. So everyone is being taken through that, including traditional surgeons, through the forums that have been created in the respective provinces, including the traditional nurses. We don't want to leave any stone unturned. We don't want to take chances. We want to make sure that there's clear awareness of what needs to be done prior to children being checked in an initiation school.
Right, now we're talking the Eastern Cape and talking the Western Cape. Meanwhile, the Northwest has actually not seen those bans or suspensions being lifted, at least in the last 12 months. What are the difficulties in that particular province in as far as the risk-adjusted plan and the viability of lifting the suspension on the schools there?
Well, the leadership of Contra-Lesa, as well as the House of Traditional Leaders in provinces like Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, as well as Mpumalanga, they took a decision long before even the announcement of the moving the country into level 2, to say that given the fact that there is a huge threat about a third wave, it goes without saying from their point of view that they have to reschedule their plans for 2021 and look at 2022. And what we did as the National Executive Committee, we said we cannot employ a one-size-fits-all in the country, because there are different environmental issues, as well as we needed to give each province, each focused attention in terms of the issues that are coming out of the ground there. So in that way, we took a flexible decision to say only provinces that are in a state of readiness must go through. So as you say, in the Northwest, I think they say the matter is still within the ambit of their own control, and therefore they have decided to reschedule for 2022 or even later this year.
Let's clear some of the tension that you've had with the Deputy Minister over initiation. You seem to have crossed paths. Have you sorted that out?
Can you repeat that question?
Saying the tension between yourself and the Deputy Minister of COCTA over this question of initiation. You seem to have crossed paths earlier on around whether or not they should continue and whether or not you require permission for this to happen. Have you sorted that misunderstanding?
Well, the Deputy Minister, Obed Mapela, did reach out to us, and we spoke with him, and he made us he explained himself, and he apologized actually to the leadership for the misunderstanding, and he took it as a misunderstanding from his perspective. And ours as an institution of traditional leadership is when someone reaches out, we have to really apply ourselves in a manner that is in line with the prescripts of our culture, particularly upholding the values of Ubuntu. So when he did apologize, we accepted his apology and we moved on. We're working with him, and we hope that such a mistake will not be repeated, because it was a mere issue of a leadership that felt that it was undermined in a manner that really looks down upon their own authority on a subject that they have stewardship over. So I think we have moved on. We are working with him now, and there are no queries or qualms.
Yeah.
All we say is that leadership must be allowed to lead, because the custodianship of the issues of rights of passage as well as customs rest within the ambit and the authority of the institution of traditional rule.
So, as we wrap up our conversation, shall we take it then that the latest COVID-19 restrictions enjoy the support of the traditional leadership in the country?
Can you repeat that question?
Shall we take it that the current COVID-19 restrictions of lockdown level 2 enjoy the support of the traditional leadership in as far as the question of the reopening of initiation schools is concerned?
Well, look, Thabo, we are of the view, and in fact it is the long-standing perspective of the institution of traditional leadership, that we ought to combine spirituality together with scientific discourse in terms of how we look at issues. So the scientific advice is very clear that there is a third wave that is coming, and therefore we do not have anything that compels us and that propels us to oppose that particular advice. All the evidence and the balance of evidence which has been put before us is clearly telling that there is a third wave, and the numbers are increasing, as you can see, and therefore we support the view that says that all necessary precautions needs to be taken, including what the president has announced of moving the country to the level 2.
That's the Controller General Secretary there, Zolani Mkiva. We continue.